Believe it or not, in this shop I have never had a space this large for assembly. I finally have built a really nice assembly table. It's Baltic birch and mahogany, but it has a trick up its sleeve. It has a really large opening in the front. I mean really large. So I'm going to explain that and why you might want to do it as well. And of course it's on wheels. You know, that's the only way to go in shops these days. So if you want to see how I did it, I'll show you. If you want to see why I did it, well, stay tuned for that. So let's take a glimpse inside. Again, thanks for joining me. My name's Chris. Let's ride. So you're going to see me cut down quite a few strips here. I'm going to, well, I got to admit something. Most of the plywood I bring into the shop, I break down into 24-inch by 36-inch pieces. So that kind of creates a bit of a problem for me. I've got to build this to be, well, 4 by 5. 4 by 5 feet to be exact as the top, maybe a little bit larger with the mahogany surrounding it. So I've got to come up with a way to kind of introduce panels to each other. And I'm going to start by joining all this Baltic birch together. These are 36 inches long, and of course I'm joining them together with little squares you're going to see here. And essentially these are going to be the panels that I'm going to make. I'm going to show you how this is going to go. Each panel is going to consist of a 90-degree angle, and then there's going to be these spacer blocks in between. I've cut out another spacer here. This is kind of going to let me install another one of these blocks, and that way I can do that from the top and the bottom, knowing I got congruency all the way around. In fact, that spacer block, I did a short video on that, making sure that you put that gap so you can actually reach in there and grab it when you're done. Pretty cool little trick. If you haven't seen that, that's down there in the channel somewhere. Who knows? Either way, pretty easy process here. Just joining them at a 90. I'm going to show it to you in its entirety. I then take these blocks I cut on the crosscut sled, put them in the top, put them in the bottom, repeat the spacer from the top and the bottom, and I'm making a total of 16 of these, well, pillars, if you will. I take that back. I think I only made 12. Yeah. Either way, I'm going to space them out with some small shelving. I'm going to tack them in place with brad nails and then use some flush trim screws to put them in place. You can see here, all this is going together pretty easy to make, well, a frame or a panel. I think you get what I'm going to do here. Now, of course, there it is. I've got them all built. There are 6 of them, yes. 4 of them are a little bit shorter than the other 2, but that's because the top is going to be 4 by 5, and each of these is going to be joined together in pairs. Pretty cool little effect. I like it. So to put a back on them, I've got some of this interesting material. I picked this up from my local dealer. It's MDF with hickory veneer on both sides. And then I've cut some strips as well. As you see, I'm just cutting down material on the table saw because I don't really have I will admit this. I have one sheet of 5 by 5 available to me right now, but everything else is broken down into these smaller pieces, so I've got to just make do with what I want. I'm not going to make plans for this one because, you know, I'm building it a way that's only conducive to my shop. But if I had my druthers and I had all the plywood I needed in terms of it not being cut down, I would have made this a little bit differently, probably a little more straightforward than cutting a bunch of pieces like I'm doing. But as you see, I'm putting back in some of these extra shelves. Not really sure why I'm hammering that. Maybe it was a little out of alignment, who knows. Either way, you can see the shelves are there, but I've got to put these small spacers involved. That way there's not a big gap when I put the back 1/4-inch piece as well. Now that the gap is clear, we're good to go. Now I'm going to make these marks. That way I know where to brad nail into this, put that 1/4-inch piece of MDF veneered hickory, and we're good to go. Except, make sure you put your lines you just drew on the other side so you can see them. Well, there are mistakes in woodworking for sure. I'm not even really sure what I do as woodworking. It may just be like plywood assembly at this point, but either way, we all make mistakes, and I figured I'd just share that with you because, hey, why not? So with the 6 panels built and the backs on all of them, I realized that I've got to take off, well, I want to flush trim everything around, and to do so, well, I need a little jigsaw to help me remove some of that 1/4-inch material, so then I could take the chamfer bit that's going to ride around the edges and get everything a nice kind of even look. I can see the comment section now going, oh my goodness, he's wearing real shoes. Look at that. We'll see how many of those pop up. So here's a real good look at all 6 of those panels coming together to form this, well, this base. Now, I don't know if really doing this differently, like I said, if I had larger sheets installed or in-house, I would have done that. But I think screwing these panels together, getting everything nice and strong and rigid, and actually feels super strong. I don't know if it would be any weaker or stronger the other way around, who knows, but it's what I did. So all 6 panels are now screwed together, ready to go, but now it's time to brace the top. I need to cut this at a 45-degree angle. I'm gonna let that be where it is and make another mark. Do it on the right side there, Chris. Come back to the table saw and then cut that to size. And then install it with 4 screws on each end. You're gonna see this, well, I'm not sure if this is gonna be the strongest solution ever, but it's gonna be pretty nice. It's gonna keep that opening really wide open. And it's going to give me a nailer to essentially screw the top from the bottom so I can install the top pretty easily. I'm going to repeat this again on the other side, as you're going to see, but I've also got to contend with the very front of the piece. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm just going to rip down a piece of 5/8 inch plywood, and hey buddy, he's always joining me out here all the time. So there it is, installed, ready to go. Time to put some casters on, flip that thing over. But there is an issue here. I used 5/8 inch plywood for that stretcher that I'm holding, and it's not exactly the same height as the rest of the entire cabinet, or assembly table for that matter. But of course you got to do the spin once you're done. But you're going to see here, this is what I'm talking about. So I've got some of this Luan or some door skin that I'm going to attach a few pieces here on this stretcher. That way when I do screw this up through the top to hold the top down, there's no flexing in this piece whatsoever. So to add a little bit more strength to that opening, especially when there's top-down pressure onto it, I'm going to make an arch of sorts, a small arch to kind of give it some extra strength. I don't have anything really to make that arch, so here's the tip I'm going to show you. You cut a little piece of that plywood that you were using, install a few nails on either side. Make sure you mark the middle of this piece. That way you have somewhere to push that arch up into. And then just do it by eye. Once it's ready to go, I take the pencil and I trace that line across. And that's a real easy way to get a nice even arch, or arc, whatever you want to call it. I guess an arc's like a big biblical boat. Let's call it an arch, yeah. And right on the bandsaw, pretty easy. The arch is there because, well, it gives some extra strength. Of course, I'm going to double it up with another piece of wood, and that's going to be facing the back. So before I completely install this, it's just compressioned in there right now. I've made some reference marks on this side and the other side that are exactly the same. And I'm gonna want to drill a hole through that thinner material in a couple of spots. That way I know exactly where I'm gonna put the screws on the other side. So, prior planning prevents, what I'm saying. So with the holes drilled, it's now time to kind of dead blow this thing back into place. But here's a quick tip. Check it out. Oh, don't forget, like I did, to put a backer board on this material as you drill through. Because, yeah, oh well. So I repeated that on both sides, and now it's time to install the top. This goes on top, making it, well, finally look like something. And I like how it looks, but it needs a bit more strength around the edge. So we're gonna cut down some of this, I guess this is 5/4 stock mahogany I had from a charcuterie board build I did for Christmas. Either way, I don't really do it too fancily here. Brad nails is all I use. I simply do one side, then mark for the other. Make a line with a razor knife, that way I got a really sharp edge. And also if you butt this thing up to that table saw blade, you can really not have hardly any tear out at all. Actually, I didn't quite get it. So I'm gonna do a little trick here. I'm gonna press it up against the blade a little bit and then retract it. And then that little bit of compression is just gonna barely take off a little bit. And as you can see, I mean, we're talking like nothing, but it's just enough what I need. So back to install it with the glue and the brad nails again. No miters, didn't think they were necessary, plus they're a pain. And then we're just gonna butt it up, and there you go. I did sand this down a little bit, of course, and there was a few little gaps, but I just kind of put a little bit of sandpaper in there and a little bit of glue. I didn't film that trick, why I didn't do that, I'm sorry, but either way, it turned out pretty nice. It still is looking pretty nice. Now, in terms of finish for this, I'm not gonna go too crazy. After a little bit of sanding, well, before I do the finish, let me tell you this. I like to put a little hand chamfer on it, a little sanding chamfer. I have no reason to get the router out for this. You just run it across a few times, making sure you just take your time with it. I think that looks pretty sharp. At this point, I was debating what kind of finish to do or even to finish it at all, and I figured I'd use the last of this Odie's oil that I got, this hard wax oil. You basically rub it in and buff it off. Pretty easy stuff. Takes a little bit, though. It takes a little bit of elbow grease as well. But you can see it brings out the look of the mahogany. Looks really good. Also, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm about to reveal what I'm using this big open spanse for. But I'm going to give you some outside shots first. You can see it's got some shallow storage all throughout. The top is gorgeous. The mahogany really sets it off. And quite frankly, this reveal coming up, you're going to see something go underneath this. It's going to be its own build video. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you're not already. And if you enjoyed this, I appreciate it. Really looking good. But yeah, stay tuned for next week's build video of what you're about to see go in here. There you go. I am over the moon. I'm so excited to get another member of the Glimpse Inside family here, another CNC. I want to thank Penguin for sending this over. They're so gracious to me. They said, looks like you need some help with production. And I said, I absolutely do. If you don't know what's going on, I've started an online business where I sell different accessories and tool holders for the maker. That'll be linked down below as well. But this torsion box style, I guess it's a CNC table that has those Rockler bench casters where the entire table will be able to rest on the floor. That way when it's running, it'll just be moving rock solid. Also, it is one thing to note, this entire thing will be turned around. Essentially, the CNC table will be on the ground, okay? And then this will be able to pull out and I can work on it and then push it back in while it's running. Should be pretty cool. So stay tuned for that. This is a two-part series of an assembly table slash, well, for me in this case, a CNC table. But honestly, I think there's some value in another assembly table being maybe a little bit lower. Have you ever been working on a project where you wish that your assembly table was just a little bit lower, but you didn't want to bring your project to the floor to work on? I think there may be some value in that. Maybe a whole other table, like nesting assembly tables. I'm not sure if that's a thing. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Now, if you like this video, I'm going to ask that you give it a thumbs up. Don't ask that too much. Subscribe for part 2 for sure. And I don't talk about it too often, but I do have a Patreon campaign. I got some pretty cool rewards. You can check that out. I'll put them right here, actually. The hats may be a little different. The tumbler's still the same for those higher tiered rewards. And also, it's a great group of people. I've had people on that who've been supporting me for 3 or 4 years, and I appreciate them immensely. You know who you are. And even the ones that have just signed up a few days ago, thank you so much. It really, I mean, the support I get from that platform is just that extra bit of thank you and comfort, knowing that it's there to help me branch off and do this to support my family and create content for you guys. It really does mean a lot. So if you're interested, if it's for you, great. If not, no pressure, of course. Your viewership is always enough for me. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Hope you enjoyed it. And this was a fun one. Y'all take care. See you.